Welcome to Transform Now, the podcast brought to you by robotic process automation pioneer Blue Prism. Digital transformation has the potential to reshape the way companies service their customers, engage their employees, and manage their operations. Whether you're looking to develop strategies, tactics, and best practices to positively impact the future of work, or you're curious to learn how other companies have successfully navigated their digital transformation programs, then this podcast is for you. We're here to help you transform now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brad Hairston with Blue Prism. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. Today, I am really excited to have as my guest Clayton Gammill, a managing director with KPMG. Clayton is focused on transformation delivery, and he and I will be discussing the cultural side of digital transformation. Clayton, welcome, and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me more than anything.
You bet. So Clayton, why don't you introduce yourself a bit more for our audience?
So I've spent the bulk of my career in the people side of work, everything from change management and systems implementations, large transformations. As you said, that's my focus at KPMG. And so we just see so much in the movement around digital and how it impacts people and how we think it's going to impact people going forward. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to talk today.
Absolutely. So Clayton, as a way of introduction to our discussion, let me point out the obvious. We live in the age of transformation, right? I mean, companies in virtually every industry are redesigning and reinventing themselves, and change is happening at a pace that has truly never been seen before. In addition, I think you would agree, the workforce is aging and jobs across all industries are harder than ever to fill. The understaffing issue is significant, and the trend data suggests that it's only going to become more challenging in the years to come, which will likely accelerate the pace of digital transformation. So with all of that as a backdrop, let's jump into our conversation. As someone who has led a lot of companies through various forms of transformation, I know you are a huge advocate of large-scale change in organizations in order to stay competitive and grow shareholder value. Clayton, in our current economy, what are the biggest factors driving companies toward transformation?
Well, there are clearly a bunch of factors. So just to limit it a little bit, you said it yourself, the changing workforce is significant. I mean, we're going into a period where 5 different generations will be working together at the same time. And technology is rapidly changing, and technology has become absolutely ubiquitous. I've heard the other day, 85% of the jobs that we will have in 2030, they're not even jobs yet. So, and it's interesting. I've got some specific situations where people I know are doing jobs I didn't know existed. A friend of mine's son is building bots and selling bots online. He taught himself on YouTube. Not sure that's the best way to learn everything, but hey. I've got another friend her daughter's fiance she builds furniture digitally. She, uses AutoCAD to build furniture, and then he can take that and do renderings using AR or VR to show customers what that furniture will look like in their house. I mean, just amazing stuff, right?
Wow.
And, people's expectations are changing. That is for sure. COVID made every generation get some level of tech savvy. I had never really used Uber Eats. I used Amazon, but heaven knows I use it as the starting point now. And FaceTime was something I tried to get my mother to do, and now through this, she won't stop using FaceTime, and she would call me daily. So, it's really rapidly changing, and this socialization of technology enablement, it's changed everybody's expectations. And so that too will drive a lot of the change in digital transformation at the organizational level.
Clayton, what is it about the current wave of transformation that is unique or causing more anxiety for the average worker?
Well, quite frankly, people really are wondering, am I going to have a job? Right? The use of self-service. I go to the grocery store and I have self-checkout, right? With cloud architectures, we see data centers at the organizational level going away. RPA, we see some of that manual activity going away. I mean, the reality, though, is if you look at the Department of Labor reports, there was a report in August that said there are 8.6 million people who are considered to be out of work, but there are 10 million open positions. There's a deficit, even without technology enablement. This is needed, right? And so for me, I think the skill gap is going to get much greater. I read an article the other day that basically said the top jobs that are available in the market. And really, they were either highly technical jobs or very service-oriented jobs. So retail and food services were one big category, but then digital technology enablement was another big category. So we really have a skills gap that's getting broader and broader. And I think that creates an opportunity.
Regardless of role or level, how do people within a company view transformation initiatives, especially digital transformation? Is that perceived as more of a threat or an opportunity? What do you typically see, Clayton?
Well, this is always, quite frankly, in my life, it's always been the same. Some people see it as a threat. Some people see it as an opportunity. In my world, I had an opportunity early on in my career in banking to go take a job doing a transformational project with the bank. And people were telling me, why would you do that? You don't have a job when you're done. And I looked at them and said, well, look, I actually will be able to chart my own course if I do this. So I saw that as an opportunity. People I worked with saw it as a threat. I guarantee you that when automotive industry began to automate manufacturing, many people saw that as a threat. The automobile industry still is a large provider of jobs. That doesn't go away. It just creates opportunities. They'll look different, right? Jobs will look different,
right?
But we need to be more creative at the organizational level in expressing the value that these digital tools will allow us to broaden our business with, right? We've just got to figure out how to engage people better and really get the message that this is an opportunity and not a threat. At KPMG, we really push our clients to think about it from a human-centric design thinking perspective, meaning let's get to the bottom of the issue. I had one of my colleagues the other day say, when you go to Home Depot to buy a drill, you're not buying a drill, you're buying a hole, right? I need a hole in my wall. I don't have a way to make a hole in the wall. It's not about the drill, it's about the hole. We put too much emphasis on the tools themselves and not the problems that need to be solved. And we have executives who go out and make these buying decisions, and then we start as implementers, we go in and start doing it. We need to get to the individual level, the human level, to understand what problems the people sitting at a desk have and how can we help them solve those. That will help, A, solve the real business issues that the company has, and B, it will accelerate acceptance and enablement of these new tools. We're actually solving their problems. So really, at the end of the day, I would say it's less about the tool and it's more about the problem that needs to be solved.
Right. Yeah, I really like that. I think what I hear you saying is it's about business outcomes and
Absolutely.
not just change for the sake of change. I think it's really important here to recognize that digital transformation is much more than a technology change. Can you speak to the relationship between digital transformation and cultural transformation?
They're completely intertwined. It's not an either or. They really are intertwined. And by definition, if a company makes the digital transformation an imperative, it's sending a signal to its people automatically that this is important, this technology is important, the innovation is important, and that we have a need or a desire to modernize, right? That all points towards some level of cultural shift, especially if we think about innovation, right? Not the old stodgy. We need to think differently. So we can't focus on the tool. We need to focus on that problem. And that becomes a huge shift for many organizations. And they really need to understand and contemplate the cultural implications as they go through this so that at the end, they're getting the value that they think they're going to get, and they're operating differently from when they started.
Okay, so digital transformation most likely will trigger a cultural shift. So based on that, how do you see the digital shift really impacting culture?
Well, I had a colleague the other day made the comment, to create a performance culture, you must be disruptive, and disruption requires disruptors, right? So you have to be bold, and you have to signal to your people culturally that we're going to be bold. Um, Researchers have found that 80% of companies who are strong innovators focus on hiring people who have a strong educational background but have a strong will. They're committed. They relish experimentation. These types of organizations differentiate with talent and their team structure. So it really does come back to the people. And you and I have had a couple of conversations about this. We're not looking to replace people for the sake of replacing them. We're trying to put people in a position to bring value in the places where they bring value, right? Which is thought. So it's really the challenge of getting to a digital mindset. It's critical, right? So some of the things that I think organizations should consider is, do they have the courage to act and to challenge themselves? So many times no one wants to make a decision, right? And people are worried about, am I going to make the wrong decision? I forget, there's some quote about entrepreneurs fail 100 times for every one success. We have to be willing and open to have the courage to let our people act and challenge. I think we need to be connecting the dots from end to end, right? Not just thinking about one piece, but let's think about that entire value chain. Let's think about the outcomes. Let's think about the customer experience. And from end to end, how do we enable that? We need to have more of a growth mindset. So that agility, collaboration, change, we need to be looking to have roles evolve and allow people to collaborate across boundaries and not work in silos, right? And then ultimately, we need everyone to be an innovator, right? The difference between being an inventor and an innovator, you're creating something new. Innovation is all about taking something that exists and let's push it forward and let's make it better. Most of our people know how to innovate. We need to be courageous enough to allow them back to the beginning to act and to challenge. So it depends on the organization, but these types of thoughts can be really seismic, but it also can be a really big signal to your people about, we want to be more progressive and we want to be an environment that allows you an opportunity to grow and get more.
Interesting. Clayton, if a company is looking to transform the culture, who do you think in the C-level is best positioned to lead this cultural shift?
I never liked that question because I don't like the answer. The answer is everyone, really. I mean, unfortunately, everyone in the C-suite has to be active in the transformation itself. I mean, really, when you look at in change management, and there's a great diagram that I've seen over the years that shows a triangle. At the top is leadership, and on one side of the triangle is project management, and the other side is change management. And the intersection between leadership and project management is decisions, right? So what's our budget? What's our timeline? But the intersection point between change management and leadership is action. And that's where change management gets really difficult, is all the leaders have to act. People have to see that there's a difference, not just hear it. They have to see a difference, because otherwise just the spoken word means very little at the end of the day. Now, that being said, the person who's most closely or should be most closely in tune with the people and the culture is the CHRO. He'd be the head of HR, the chief people officer, chief human resources officer, whatever the title. If they're not front and center being a champion, they're missing an opportunity to really play a strategic role in the space in which they practice. So Leading technology innovation seems to be a challenge, though, for HR oftentimes, and they haven't always been on the forefront. So I think this can be a challenge. And I think sometimes the HR leadership thinks, well, that's not really my space. But if you really want to push the culture and you want to be on that front end and be an innovative thinker, this is an opportunity for those HR leaders to lead.
How did you advise leadership teams to address the human aspect more effectively when they're executing a transformational initiative?
Well, I really got to be very targeted, thoughtful, and process oriented, because change doesn't just happen. All right. There are a number of steps that we think should be taken. First, define the culture of the digital. Like, what results are you trying to achieve? What conflicts are you trying to resolve? What do you want that future to look like? Identify key scenarios and roles. So understand which roles are going to be most needed to drive the change, and who are those key influencers. We now talk about influencers on a social media sense, but within organization, there are definitive influencers. Identify who those are and help them enable that change. And then pinpoint those moments that matter. In the HR space, which is where I've played a lot of my career, moments that matter are in almost every interaction, but they're also in the day-to-day lives of our people. So we really want to look at what are those moments that matter, what's important to our people, and that's where we can put some focus, and then articulate the desired behavior. So how do you want people to behave differently at the end of this? Because if you don't have a plan, you cannot execute. And then finally, align those cultural drivers. So whatever those key drivers are, make sure they're in alignment from all levels, and especially at the senior leadership position. If you have senior leaders who are not engaging, who are not in alignment with those cultural drivers that you're seeking to achieve, you're going to be facing an uphill battle.
You alluded to this earlier, but as you think about RPA, there's been a fear about digital workers replacing human workers. Do you think we've moved past this to some extent?
Well, some people have. I mean, quite frankly, I have. I felt like that was part of the business case in the beginning, but the reality is someone's got to manage that workforce.
Right.
There's this misconception that we're going to get this technology, we're going to set it up, we're going to let it go, and it runs in perpetuity. Well, that's just not the reality. You need to manage their data inputs. There are breakpoints. What this is about is getting rid of the low value activities of human behavior and focusing on the high value, which is how do I think, right? So then we've got this interesting thing where HR, I think, should be more active in helping to build this blended workforce. Historically, I don't think this is true in every organization, but historically, the operations group has been the most active in defining the workforce strategy. HR then executes on that. But I think HR should be more involved. And this is an opportunity to really look at this shift in priority and create the opportunity for HR to define the roles that humans play and the roles that the digital workers can play. Ultimately, managing this new workforce, it's an opportunity for HR to be truly additive and accretive to that critical strategy that the business is trying to execute. And they really have the license to take it right now if they will. It's a big opportunity that's being missed, but the reality is it's not too late to get involved in that. And at the end of the day, organizations need to take this opportunity to have humans focus, as I said earlier, on what humans do best, on thought, on strategy, on where they can add more to the company. And that, in my belief, is where we'll get more satisfaction at work, taking out the mundane and bringing in the thoughtfulness of being a human.
Agreed. As organizations embrace emerging technology like RPA, it becomes important for the human workforce to upskill, or you often hear reskill. Clayton, is reinventing ourselves part of the new normal for holding down a career going forward? What do you think about that?
Well, I'm different than everyone else, but honestly, since I started working, I firmly believe that if we're not reinventing ourselves, we're probably not progressing. Yeah, I mean, my dad was one of the few people, he used to say, that knew what he wanted to do when he was 5 years old and did it. Most of us aren't that way.
Right.
So
Right.
if you're not continuously reskilling or upskilling, you're probably getting left behind. And I'll be honest, I'm frustrated with universities right now because I don't see them developing some of these skills that the workforce needs coming out. I mean, we need kids who are coming out of college who have analytic skills, who have visualization skills, who can program and do RPA, do process mining. All of these areas are part of the digital experience, and all of them are important no matter what school you're in. Music schools have much more of a digital focus. English has a digital focus now. We've got blogs and vlogs, and we need to have people coming out understanding technology in a much more significant way. And I feel like when I see our students coming out, we're having to teach them all of these skills, but they need them right now. And just giving a kid an iPad probably isn't the answer. We need to equip them to really fill this skills gap and fill it quickly. I've got a friend whose son is 15 years old and knows how to develop bots. I was with a friend last night who works for Southwest Airlines, and they said that their mechanics are using RPA in a big way, and they are one of the most high demand places in the organization. So it's important. Everyone needs these skills, and everyone needs to be upskilling. And so to that end, yes, that is the absolute new norm. Now I would argue probably should have been the norm at the beginning, but it's the new norm now.
Let's go back to the understaffing issue, which most industries are really struggling with right now. Do you expect that this is going to motivate many company leaders to accelerate their reshaping of their workforces and incorporating digital labor into the organization?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think they have to. We've got a 1.4 million worker deficit right now today. That's not in 2023 or 2030. That's today. Presumably the work of those 1.4 million jobs needs to be done. So what are you doing? And like some of these jobs are potentially low value jobs that are ripe for digital automation, right? That maybe I can automate some of those roles and upskill or bring people in. Somebody posted the other day, if you don't have a job, you don't want one. I think there's some truth to that. The good news is I'm watching CBS Sunday Morning a couple of weeks ago. There are people not getting into the workforce right now because they're doing this very thing. They're going to LinkedIn Learning and they're learning how, or going to Blue Prism and learning how to build bots and how to do better, stronger analytics. So that's one good part of this deficit. There are people in the market reskilling, but we have to get this movement more rapidly. It's not that we don't have people, it's we don't have the right people. So we have to make sure we're equipping our existing workforce, but also as a society, getting people up to speed. In lieu of the educational system doing it, there are ways to educate yourself. Like I said, LinkedIn Learning, or go to the platforms themselves offer training, right? So keep in mind, most of these technologies, they're not coding. And that's the big fallacy in my mind, is that people think, well, I'm not a coder. It's not. So much this is process driven. It's logical user interfaces. It's not math equations anymore. It's about understanding how to map out processes and improve those and equip it through technology. So
I'm really glad to hear that you agree with this hybrid workforce concept, human and digital workers, together. I think that is the new norm. We at Blue Prism like to talk about the idea that the enterprise of the future is going to be made up of 3/3, a third human workers, a third digital workers, and a third systems and AI services. Do you think most companies are well equipped to embrace this kind of paradigm?
Well, I know they've got the first third covered, and people,
Yes.
not positive about the rest. But as I said, I don't even know if those are the right humans, quite frankly. So Yeah, we need to fix the human side of it as well. But like I said, I think HR should be a leader in this space because it's not a technology issue. It really is a business issue. I mean, technology is the solution. Like I said earlier with the drill, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think progressive and smart companies are moving in the right direction on the systems side. We see it on the cloud. We see our customers moving into a lot of these digital spaces and putting a lot of thought into it. But really, cloud is just the starting point. I mean, if you think that you have a digital strategy because you're moving to, a cloud solution, that was 8, 9 years ago,
Right.
we're further. I'm not convinced that AI is moving as quickly as it needs to. I mean, I will tell you, I'll be the first to, I'm not the deepest in the AI space. So I'm probably going to make some artificial intelligence guru really mad, but I don't think it's magic, right? It still needs to be taught. Unlike me, once the artificial intelligence is taught, it's like the ultimate elephant, right? It never forgets and it'll do it the same way every day. And that's what these digital workers in the workforce are doing but someone has to, if a new problem arises, someone has to teach the technology, right? So sort of like on the AI side, the other digital technologies, the bottom line is they're consistent. They do it the same way. They don't call in sick, but they still can't think for themselves yet. Now, I know that Amazon and Facebook would argue that, but that's not the norm for most organizations, right? I think we're getting there, but I think we're a ways away from pure machine learning, but we're getting closer, and we are going to have to deal with some of the ethical issues that I don't want to touch. But there is going to need to be this sort of model of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 in order for us to really execute going forward.
Well, we've covered quite a bit of ground in our chat today. You've pointed out that digital transformation is accelerating. There are opportunities for workers to bring more value to their jobs. There's an opportunity for HR to play a bigger role and to lead. You've talked about how it's going to take the entire leadership team together to transform an enterprise and their business. And all of this will prompt genuine culture change. That's a lot to think about. To wrap things up, where do you recommend organizations start this digital journey?
Well, most companies have started in some way, shape, or form. But what I would say is a lot of companies are jumping into the pool. Sometimes you got to slow down to speed up. All right. I think some organizations can accelerate if they had a better plan. They need to be looking at the use cases that not just looking at the use cases that solve small problems, but they need to be looking broadly, like I said earlier, end to end. And let's figure out what those macro issues are. I tell clients to start with their strategy. They've got to link their business strategy with their functional strategy, because there are some really good things you can do that strategically are great, but they just don't match with your approach. And one example I give all the time is if I'm an organization, an HR organization, and I think we're going to really focus on our industry, on hiring people, we need to go and hire people from our industry. But our business strategy is one of, we want to innovate in the market. Those don't match, right? I may be getting great people with great industry experience, but it doesn't mean I'm getting innovation. I'm getting a lot of the same. So that doesn't mean that one's a bad strategy. It just means it doesn't match. So you've got to match those two up. And then once you align those strategies, apply that human-centric design thinking to solve the problems that will really move the needle at the individual level. Work with your employees, not just the leadership, but those employees know what the problems are. And then work to culminate into a set of initiatives that will enable that broader strategy, and then plan, right? We build out journey maps that span anywhere from 6 to 24 months. Once you truly understand the initiatives, you can start to apply the digital principles and tools that will allow the organization to be the most effective in executing on those specific strategies that you've outlined. The key to success is don't put the cart before the horse. Have a plan, think as broadly as possible, and get the most value over an extended period of time, and make sure that you're truly solving the business problems that you need to solve, not just the points that won't move the needle. You've got to try to move that needle.
Really good stuff, Clayton. And I sure appreciate you joining the podcast today and sharing your perspective. You are one of the true people experts in this whole world of transformation. So it's really been good to get your thoughts on how to ensure success in these holistic change initiatives. So thank you so much for the time, and be well.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to Transform Now. For more insightful discussions on digital transformation and more, check out our podcast channel where you'll find all of our previous episodes. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player. And if you like what you heard, please leave us a review. For more information about digital transformation and the future of work, check out blueprism.com to learn how Blue Prism's digital workforce is enabling enterprise transformation now.